So I have had a bit of dilemma. I do use colored pencil for a lot of my mixed media work, including watercolors that I do, whether it's in my sketchbook or for commission pieces. I do look for a brand that has lightfastness. And when I want to get tight details, my go-to has been the Derwent Studio. But if you see my other videos, I've talked about how Derwent has discontinued this line. Now, you can, if you're lucky, still find some open stock and some of the sets. Derwent Studio goes up to 72 different colors. This is a 36 set, and I was lucky to get that at a good price. And you can see that up at the top. I'll put a little link to the video on that where I swatch them out. But what do? These are 3.4 core, so a bit smaller than, I don't know if this is going to focus, there we go. A bit smaller than a regular pencil. This is the Derwent Lightfast Light Bronze. You can see a little bit wider core. I think that's a 3.5 or so. But these really get in detailed, and they're a little bit harder than the Lightfast. So they've been my go-to for doing detail work. The only other thing that's even close to them on the market is the Prismacolor Premier, and they only go up to 36 different colors. Come in this box. It always feels like a magic box because I can never remember how it works. I think it sort of stands like so, has its own stand therefore. So color-wise, I'm just going to do a comparison. If you're looking to replace, if you're not doing any work that is commission-based, that you have to worry about having lightfastness as an issue, then the Prismacolor Verithins could work for you. But let's compare the colors to each other and see if there's some comparison so that, when the lemon cadmium's gone, you have a backup in the Prismacolor. So both called lemon yellow, or lemon cadmium and lemon yellow. Let's see how close the colors are. And I'm going to be swatching both of them out. You can get a download a PDF of the swatches of Studio pencils, the 36 set, and I've added a few that were still available as open stock, so you can get that as well. So here we go. This is the lemon yellow from Verithin. And let's see if the lemon cadmium is similar. It is a lot smoother going on. It does seem to put down more pigment than the Prismacolor. And how about straw yellow? Let's see how close it is to the canary yellow. Not quite the same. This is a warmer color than the canary yellow. And then Spanish orange. And deep cadmium. Or an orange chrome. It's kind of, the Spanish orange is kind of in between these two. Again, sort of cooler than the Derwent ones. Goldenrod, something that allergy sufferers hate. This is really not going down as easily as the Derwent, especially this particular color. And I think it's really a subdued color in comparison to the orange chrome. Now let's look at orange itself. Oh. Now one of the complaints about Prismacolors is that they break really easily. I'm just gonna have to take a second. Oops. Yeah, it's even breaking as I'm sharpening it. And let's see if the Scarlet Lake, if you watched my video, you see that I got the wrong color in the set. This is a little bit more of a desaturated orange, verging on red. So it's a lot brighter. And then we have pale vermilion. It is quite pale. Kind of really pushing down on that. But again, you're not using these to do you know, washes of color, so to speak. You're doing them for more line than anything. So pale vermilion is very pale. This is a lot more intense. And we're going to skip the way they have them here. And the pumpkin orange, I don't think there's quite the equivalent in the studio range. Maybe the golden brown. But there seems to be, in the studio range, there seems to be reds lacking. And in the Prismacolor range, there seems to be some of the earth tone lacking, like the ochre, this golden brown. So there's a little bit, it's not quite comparable, so that is the problem. Poppy red. That's closer to the deep vermilion. And I've already done the deep vermilion, so that is kind of it for the warmer reds. We have Crimson Lake, which is a nice somewhat cooler, somewhat more primary kind of red. And the crimson red here is a bit brighter. Bit more towards the warmer than the cooler crimson lake. And the Prismacolor magenta. The magentas are usually the cooler version of reds. And this, I think the studio is very verging on purple magenta. And so pale peach, which will be very difficult for you to see, but you'll have my scans of it later on, is quite like the light peach in the Prismacolor. This is more on the pink and this is more to the yellow. And then the Deco Pink, which I love the name, is a very pink. Less, when I think of Deco Pinks, I think of more of a desaturated pink. And so the rose pink in the studio is quite like it. And so I did the crimson lake. Now we're going to the purples. So first up is the Dahlia purple. And it's almost like the magenta, but more purple than pink. The Imperial purple is definitely a purple. This is when we have to start, because they don't really have the same lineup in comparison. So that's the dark violet. And this is the light violet. Blue violet lake. It's almost like a periwinkle or cornflower. And so comparing the two purples, you have Parma violet, which is kind of in between, a little bit closer to the blue violet lake, which is more blue than that. And then there's violet. Which is, again, sort of in between those two. Let's see what the ultramarines are like. So this is the Prismacolor ultramarine. Oops. And the Derwent version. So the Prismacolor ultramarine is more on the red shade than the studio one. What about the Spectrum blue? Is it like the True Blue? And it's quite similar. It's maybe a little bit brighter than the Spectrum Blue, but close enough. Oops. And then there's no real equivalent for the light cerulean blue. So that's one that you wouldn't find in the Studio range anyways. All right, now let's stop there and we'll go into, so that, I was a little trigger happy with the stop button there, so I cut myself off a little bit. Does not matter. So going on to Peacock Blue. And I do realize I should have been doing the Studio pencil swatches first and then seeing if there's equivalent in the Prismacolor. But that's, so this is the Spectrum Blue. And the next one in line would be the Prussian for the Studio, but there's nothing comparable really with the Prismacolor for the Prussian Blue. Then Kingfisher Blue. And this is closer to the Peacock Blue. And then the last in the blue range for Prismacolor is the Violet Blue, which still doesn't, it's very close to their own ultramarine. It's almost exactly the same, but there's no real equivalent for the Studio, so that's a completely different blue that you have there. And the Aquamarine. I believe it'd be close to the Jade Green by Derwent. So there you have a closer match. Now, Apple Green, I think would be, so Emerald Green's here. Does Apple Green match? This is where the Prismacolor one is a little bit more desaturated, more natural green. That's quite a vivid green, and this is more yellow as well. And True Green. Those are a bit closer in color. Mineral Green. Probably be the equivalent would be probably this grass green, but not quite. There's more blue in that one. And then there's grass green here, which isn't like any of these. It's a lot brighter than the apple green. And then there's May green. also have, there's two greens that I got open stock that aren't part of 36. There's a sap green. And there's a cedar green. And that's Derwent. And again, there's no real equivalent. Maybe the olive green is closest to the cedar. And then this peacock green is a really, really bright Verithin sort of green and doesn't have an equivalent in the studio that I have that are in the 36. There might be in the 72. I would think that there probably is. And so cedar green here. Oh, I already have that. So again, it's kind of a little bit closer to the olive green if you're looking for a match. And the olive green there isn't really an equivalent to the Prismacolor one. Now moving on to greens, we have terracotta. Oops. And there is a terracotta in the studio range. But it's a little bit brighter than the one in the Prismacolor, although I do like the Prismacolor one better, I think. And it actually goes on nicer. That's it in the 36 range for reds. There is a burnt carmine. Just the Tuscan red in the Prismacolor is the closest to it. And like I said, then the comparisons are kind of not quite there. For dark umber, let's see what these are like. And dark brown. It's more yellow brown. So I think that the Van Dyke, which is a little bit more yellow, is close enough to the dark brown. And then the chocolate, which isn't in the 36 set, then you do have an equivalent really with the dark umber. They're very light. This is a little bit darker. Copper Beech, sort of in between, closer to the dark brown than anything. But there's no ochres in the 36 range. Instead they go into metallics, which I can just leave. I don't really need those. So I'm not going to do the metallic silver or the metallic gold because there's no, that doesn't replace any of the studio ones. But there is a warm, let's see, the French gray. Again, not part of the 72 or 36 range, it's part of 72. But it does have a somewhat comparable. This is still a little bit cooler. It's more red tone in the Derwent French Gray than there is in the Prismacolor Warm Gray 20%. And then there's two grays. There's the blue gray, which is more like a light Payne's gray, I would say, and gunmetal, which I like. This is more of a purpley, gray. And then the cool gray. It doesn't really match either of those two. And black is black, but sometimes they look a little bit different. So I'm going to swatch those out. The ivory black. Somewhat good coverage. A little bit better than the Prismacolor. It's more of a leaning on the blue black. And then the whites, you always want to see how they cover. This is Chinese white in the studio. Goes on really, really well. And so does the Prismacolor, but it's a little bit lighter than the Chinese white in the studio. So to really sum up, you're not going to find the same colors except for a few comparables like jade green and the aquamarine, terracotta, and this terracotta somewhat the same, Van Dyke brown, dark brown somewhat the same, chocolate and dark umber, again somewhat. It's not going to be a replacement if you're really attached to the Derwent Studio line. I've contacted Derwent and they said there's no plans for doing a small core pencil. So I think they're just going to get away from that, and I think that's a shame because I think it does come in handy when you're doing things that are detailed. So I don't know if that helps. I'm very sorry for your loss if you really loved the studio range, which I do. In a pinch, the Prismacolor will kind of work. Again, I wouldn't, they say there's, good light fastness, but I wouldn't say they're as good as the Derwent range. They're a little bit better than the other Prismacolors that are quite soft, and that's the whole aim of this, is to be a little bit harder and finer, but it means that they don't break as much as maybe some of the older Prismacolors regular line does. But that is sadly it. So stock up if you want these studios before they go, and best of luck, everybody. Thanks so much. And again, you can find the PDF. I'll scan this comparison and put it up on my website. Thanks so much. Bye.